A lot of questions at the Phoenix Police Department, big changes in management, the expectation of a new police chief, and then the interim police chief quits. To talk about this and the effects on Phoenix PD from PPSLA is Ben Leuchner, the head of the organization. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
I want to spend just a minute kind of catching up. Interim Chief Sullivan brought in to kind of navigate the scenario at the Department of Justice. He was one of the 4 finalists that was named to take the job of the permanent police chief. And then it seems like, at least in the 11th hour, he withdrew his name, and the city announced they are starting over in the process. What does that do to the organization to have that kind of indecision?
Mike, quite honestly, it's frustrating for my membership. That's the feedback that I'm getting, only because we've been in limbo for quite a while. And obviously, you know that we did a survey where the survey showed that in the high 90s in the percentile rate, people did not want to see Chief Sullivan continue in that role. So now that we've been told we have to wait several more months, frustration is probably the best word as far as trying to get some leadership in place.
I'm going to talk about that survey for a moment. And by the way, PPSLA is a Sergeant and Lieutenants Association at Phoenix PD, so people understand. The supervisors, these are in-the-field supervisors of the street cops that do all the work in the field.
Correct.
If you have people in supervisory roles that are frustrated, I know that there is often between management and labor, there's always contention. But what does that 90+% number mean? I mean, how significant is the number?
So you're always going to have people that are dissatisfied, right?
Yeah.
At any workplace. That's normal. We expect that. What we didn't expect in our survey was such a high percentage, because when we asked the question, for example, should PPSLA support Chief Sullivan for the process, 98% of our membership actually came back saying no. And then there were comments made by our members, which were, you probably saw some of them, but they were very raw, emotional comments. Mm-hmm. And that took us by surprise a little bit, because we knew the general feeling, but we didn't realize it was that strong. And for any organization the size of Phoenix to have that kind of response told us that overwhelmingly our rank and file supervisors were saying we were not getting leadership.
The biggest concerning thing for me that I saw was the question was asked, do you believe that basically is the chief running the agency and making the decisions? And it was 96, almost 97% said no. But when the follow-up question was asked, who is, if you don't believe he is, it was the city manager, assistant city manager, city council. Concerning for people, is that concerning to you that officers and lieutenants and sergeants believe that it's outside of the police department that's making police decisions?
Yeah, and so what's interesting is that's my membership, right? And then I'm in a special role where I have the privilege, I suppose, of meeting with these people. So I meet with Lori Vallow, I meet with Jeff Barton, I meet with my members too. So I was hearing that anecdotally from my members that they thought Lori Vallow is running it. I would actually talk to her and I would ask her and I would tell her, hey, I have members, and this is before the survey, that believe you're running the show. And I believe her. I mean, she was very sincere when she says she is not. And then Chief Sullivan would tell me the same thing. He's running the show, but I couldn't get my members to believe that. And
so where's that lack of communication?
There's something going on there where there was either a vacuum of leadership, right, from Chief Sullivan, or there's some truth to this story, right? Because we had this information from command staff too, that it might be a combination of the two. In other words, you have a vacuum of leadership, plus you have perhaps Lori Vallow was trying to then make some decisions, and it could be something like that was going on. We're hoping that if we get a new strong leader in place, that goes away.
So that's my last question. What do you want to see in the next police chief?
So, I know Jeff Barton used the word unicorn, which is kind of a funny term because they don't exist. We're looking for the best possible candidate. We're looking for somebody who will support the rank and file. And I'm not saying just be a yes man to whatever the unions say. That we never are looking for that. And we're also not against reform. That's what people need to understand. We actually do believe in reform. But we need a chief that understands what's going on with our morale right now, because it is at rock bottom. We are losing people left and right. We are in a staffing crisis. We are at the lowest numbers that we've had since the 1990s. And so we're at a point now where we can't answer the calls anymore. And the public doesn't even know that because we don't really publicize that very often. But it is true, and it is a staffing crisis, and we think that if we have a strong leader in place who's competent, that they can actually turn this ship around, hopefully, to where we keep our officers.
Well, I wish you the best, and I appreciate the information and the insight.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back. Coming up. All right, welcome back. All eyes seem to be on another trial in Arizona, this one of Lori Vallow. Joining us to talk about this is Kirk Nurmi. First of all, thank you for doing this.
Oh, always an honor to be with you, Mike.
The significance, of course, for a lot of people that recognize you is that you were the defense attorney for Jodi Arias. So you have been a part of one of these all eyes on trial. What's that like for someone that's trying to either defend her, she's defending herself, but she's got people advising her? And what's it like with the intensity of that scrutiny?
Yeah, I think the intensity can be really overwhelming, but as an attorney, and it's obviously different, as you mentioned, she's representing herself. She might not feel some of that scrutiny. She's not walking outside the courthouse. She's not seeing the social media posts. She's probably not getting threats like me and my defense team got when we were trying Arias. So it's a lot different. But it's also different in the sense that, Miss Arias came in, it wasn't quite as known a quantity. She wasn't as infamous as Lori Vallow came in. We keep in mind, many of us watch in the true crime community, those who follow trials, watched her trial in Idaho, watched her be convicted of the killing of her children. So she came in with a high degree of infamy, and also her notion to represent herself puts a different spin on things, because I think maybe there's not as many eyes on it because a lot of people feel like she is looking to make this trial her spectacle, her stage, if you will.
But isn't there some commonality in that? Because I'm trying to be a psychologist here, but isn't there a commonality between the two of them? Because it seemed that way as an observer that that's the same thing Jodi Arias was trying to do. That there's a little bit of, this is my stage. Is there some of that, do you think? Or not?
I don't know that that's a fair comparison to make, because when we talk about representing yourself, that's a whole different ballgame.
Well, Ted Bundy.
Right, Ted Bundy, that sort of thing. So that's a whole different ballgame, and you have to feel like she has had two sets of attorneys now. Her public defenders withdraw. There's been competency evaluations. She becomes competent, and then she decides to ditch her counsel, their advisory counsel now. So she's looking to really capitalize. I think there's a big difference, right, in terms of maybe having cameras there and then wanting to perform in front of them, like we've seen Miss Daybell do.
So when you look at what the end of this, the possibility that she could be acquitted on any of this, what do you look for as an attorney? Is it the length of deliberation? If it takes longer to deliberate, is it better for the defendant? What is the best case scenario for her?
Well, I don't think, to be honest, Mike, I don't think there's much possibility that we're going to hear a two-word verdict, that not guilty verdict at the end of this trial. The state's case to date has been compelling. It's been pretty straightforward, and it illustrates a pretty clear picture. And, her lawyering is akin to shooting herself in the foot. She has constantly, throughout this trial, been doing everything she can, subconsciously perhaps, to sabotage her own case. So I think, rather than length of deliberations, one of the things that I think a lot of experts would look at, and I would look at if I was trying the case, is the jury questions. Arizona is unique. The juries have the ability to ask questions of every witness, and then both parties can follow up. But some of those questions that you hear from the jury members really kind of give a little bit of insight into what they're thinking, as opposed to the length of the deliberations, because that could mean a whole bunch of different things in many different cases.
So the last question is, since she's already been convicted in another state, if she's convicted here, what happens? Where does she serve her time?
Right. Well, keep in mind, though, Ms. Vallow, if she's convicted, she has the possibility of going to trial here again in Maricopa County for the attempted murder of Brandon Bordeaux.
Right.
So she's not done yet with this case, if you will, as long as the county attorney decides to prosecute it. But ultimately, because Idaho had the prosecution first, what have you, she will return to the state of Idaho to serve that sentence, and the Arizona sentence will be likely to consider to run consecutive to it. As silly as that sounds on a natural life sentence, if anything were to happen in Idaho, if something were to overturn her conviction, what have you, that consecutive sentence in Arizona would then kick in, and then she would serve her time in Arizona. But all likelihood, After this is over, the Lori show is done. She goes back to Idaho, and hopefully we hear nothing of her again.
Unless she gets put on, are they going to prosecute here? The second one? Do you think the county attorney will?
I think so. I've heard people that are connected to the county attorney's office feel like that if they get a conviction in this case, they may not pursue charges against Brandon Boudreaux, but I don't personally feel that's likely because it seems to me that Miss Kay, the prosecutor in this case, is looking to get justice for all the victims, and Brandon Boudreaux, the attempted murder of him, would certainly fit into that category.
Appreciate the time and the expertise as always.
You bet, Mike.
We'll be back.